Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 1144.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to talk about the 3 ways your finances could be affected by the debt ceiling. Now, recently in the news, we've heard that the United States has reached the debt ceiling limit of $31.4 trillion. That's a massive amount of debt. And there seems to be a lot of confusion over what this means and how we can be impacted. So what we know about the debt limit or debt ceiling is it's the total amount of money the U.S. can borrow to meet its legal obligations, which include Social Security and Medicare, military salaries, tax refunds, and of course, interest on the national debt and other payments. Now, while we've reached the spending limit, it doesn't mean that all spending is necessarily going to stop. There are ways to conserve different spending, and so they're going to cut back on certain things and delay payments to other things. And the actual time of real crisis apparently is going to come more like around the June time horizon. It's Congress's job to decide what the amount is that the government can borrow, and then the Fed goes and implements that decision. The Treasury Department may be able to prioritize some payments, and that would include Social Security. And the Social Security Administration may delay payments to ensure it has enough cash on hand. Medicare payments may fluctuate, while other areas like federal employee salaries and food benefits through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, could stop altogether. From what they're saying, Social Security will get paid and interest on the debt will get paid, but after that, it's up in the air what the priorities for payment are. So when we look at the website of the U.S. Department of the Treasury, it says the debt limit is the total amount of money that the United States government is authorized to borrow to meet its existing legal obligations, including Social Security and Medicare benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, tax refunds, and other payments. It says the debt limit does not authorize new spending commitments. It simply allows the government to finance existing legal obligations that Congresses and presidents of both parties have made in the past. Failing to increase the debt limit would have catastrophic economic consequences. It would cause the government to default on its legal obligations, an unprecedented event in American history. And it goes on to say, Congress has always acted when called upon to raise the debt limit. Since 1960, Congress has acted 78 separate times to permanently raise, temporarily extend, or revise the definition of the debt limit. So we have gotten into this crisis situation before. Remember when the government was shut down for a period of time? It usually does get resolved eventually. So there are 3 ways that Americans could feel the impact of the debt ceiling crisis on their personal finances. First, you could see it in cuts to Social Security or Medicare, or even a delay of your tax refund. Without a breakthrough in Congress, the government might not be able to send out monthly checks for Medicare benefits, the health insurance program, or other financial programs that it has commitments for. However, not everyone agrees with this assessment. University of Texas at Austin economist James K. Gilbreth, a former staff economist for the House Banking Committee and a former executive director of the Joint Economic Committee of Congress, recently wrote that Social Security, Medicare, and other programs are mandated spending. That means by law, the U.S. must pay for these benefits. The U.S. Treasury must follow the law. Debt ceiling or not, it cannot legally default on any obligation, Gilbreth noted. The second way that Americans could be impacted is by surging borrowing costs. That means interest rates might increase, especially if the credit rating of the U.S. gets downgraded, which is a real risk. Back in the 2011 debt crisis, when the government shut down, the cost of borrowing rose and the debt rating agency Standard & Poor's downgraded the U.S. debt for the first time. The lower rating undermined investor confidence in our money system. Kathleen Day, a business lecturer at Johns Hopkins University, said a default would likely push interest rates even higher. The cost to borrow for homes, cars, and credit cards would explode, she said. In short, default would cause mayhem. Most people consider outright default pretty unlikely, but it can't be ruled out, and it could come at a time when consumers are already facing high borrowing costs due to the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes last year. So seeing interest rates spike could actually cause more problems in the housing market or trouble with people being able to get loans or afford loans to make large purchases such as for cars. And the third way your finances could be affected is it could negatively impact the stock market. Back in 2011, when there was the debt limit crisis, the stock market declined about 14%, while Congress was arguing over a 4-week period. At that time, the federal debt was only $14 trillion, less than half what it is today. But a deal was eventually agreed to, and they raised the ceiling just days before a default. Even so, the stock market plunged dramatically, and 14% on top of last year's 19% would not be a good thing. So you could be impacted those 3 ways: cuts to Social Security, Medicare, maybe a delay on your tax refund, surging borrowing costs or interest rates, and possibly a stock market pullback. What can you do about it? Well, not a whole lot, but in terms of taking control of your own finances, what you can do is set aside some cash in case the stock market does pull back. You'll have a buying opportunity. You can plan to pay cash for some of your purchases that you were going to borrow money for. And you can take into account that you might have a delay getting your tax refund back, or maybe even delay getting certain payments from the government. But it really looks like not a lot is going to happen necessarily immediately, and June is really the focal month for when everything really comes to a head, according to Dan Adcock, Director of Government Relations and Policy at the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. He says the consequences are dire because a default would not only disrupt Social Security and Medicare benefits, but also cause a global economic recession or worse. So hang in there. I'll give you regular updates as this is an unfolding situation that will definitely have more implications in the future. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. Share the wealth and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.